Why do they come back after you go no contact? It's a question that haunts many of us. Maybe it's someone you thought was the one, a person you invested your time, energy, and emotions into. Or maybe it's someone you've tried to move on from, only to find them suddenly reappearing just when you started to reclaim your peace. What drives this behavior? What makes someone who seemed distant or even indifferent reverse course after you've stepped back? Here's the thing. We often get told the wrong story. Many people believe no contact is about playing hard to get, disappearing just long enough to spark curiosity or jealousy. But let me ask you this. If that were true, why doesn't it work for everyone? Why do some people find themselves waiting in vain, while others watch their absence transform the entire dynamic? The truth is, no contact works because it taps into the deeper layers of human psychology. It's not a game, it's a shift in power, perspective, and respect. Done correctly, it's not about manipulating the other person, it's about reclaiming your worth and allowing them to see it clearly. That's why today we're going to dive into the real reasons they come back after no contact. This is about understanding human nature, recognizing the tools at your disposal, and leveraging Stoicism to ground yourself in self-respect and growth. You're here because you want answers. You're tired of guessing or relying on shallow tactics that don't address the root causes. This isn't about quick fixes, it's about transformation. By the end of this journey, you won't just understand why they return, you'll understand why you might not even need them to. Let's begin where it all starts, with the psychology behind why absence can be so powerful. 1. The psychology of no contact. Absence. It's a simple idea, but its impact runs deep. Why does it matter so much when you pull away? Why does the lack of your presence trigger something in them that your constant attention never could? The answer lies in one of the most fundamental principles of human psychology: scarcity. When something is always available, it's easy to take it for granted. Think about your daily routine. Do you ever marvel at the hot water from your shower or the ease of turning on a light switch? Probably not. But what happens when the power goes out? Suddenly, the absence of something you overlooked feels monumental. This same principle applies to relationships. When you're always there, always texting, always initiating, always showing you care, they start to see your attention as a given. Not consciously perhaps, but the human mind has a way of devaluing what it assumes will always be there. No contact disrupts that assumption. It introduces scarcity, and with it, the possibility of loss. And that's where the shift begins. They start to feel the weight of your absence. Your silence becomes louder than any words you could have spoken. But here's the key. No contact isn't just about being absent from their life. It's about how you fill the space you leave behind. Are you using this time to grow, to heal, to thrive? Or are you simply waiting, hoping they'll notice? Stoicism teaches us that true power lies in controlling what we can and letting go of what we can't. When you go no contact, you're practicing this principle. You're removing yourself from their orbit not to punish or provoke them, but to focus on what you can control, your own well-being. This isn't manipulation, it's self-respect. It's saying, I value myself enough to step back when I'm not valued. And ironically, that's exactly what makes them start to value you again. People crave what they can't have. When you're no longer available, you become a mystery, an enigma. They start to wonder what you're doing, how you're feeling, and whether they misjudged your importance in their life. But let's pause here for a moment. Have you ever wondered why this psychological pull is so strong? Why does the mind fixate on something it no longer has access to? The answer lies in a phenomenon known as rosy retrospection. When we lose something, our brains often focus on the positives and downplay the negatives. It's why we romanticize past relationships or idealize moments that, in reality, may not have been as perfect as they seem in hindsight. By going no contact, you're allowing this process to take root. You're giving them the space to remember the good times without the interference of current conflicts or frustrations. And as their mind begins to idealize those memories, the desire to reconnect grows stronger. But let's not forget the other side of this coin, your side. No contact is as much about them as it is about you. Are you using this time to become the person you've always wanted to be? To heal, to rediscover your passions, to ground yourself in your own worth? Because if you're not, you're missing the most important part of the process. This isn't about winning them back. It's about stepping into your power. Stoicism reminds us that we are not defined by others' opinions or actions. When you go no contact, you're not just stepping back from them, you're stepping forward into your own life. And whether they return or not, you've already won. So, let me ask you this. What would it look like if you truly embraced the power of your absence? If you use this time not to wait, but to grow? Because here's the secret. The more you focus on thriving without them, the more powerful your absence becomes. They will feel it. They will notice it. And whether they act on it or not, you'll be better for it. Isn't that a win worth striving for? Now let's move to the next layer of this transformation, the fear of being replaced. Stay with me, because this is where the shift becomes undeniable. 2. Fear of replacement. What happens when someone realizes they could lose something they once took for granted? Imagine this, you're holding a prized possession, something you've always assumed would be yours. Then, suddenly you see someone else reaching for it. In that instant, a feeling rises within you, panic, urgency, and an intense desire to hold on tighter. That's the fear of replacement, and it's one of the most powerful psychological forces that can drive someone to come back after no contact. But let's make this clear. This isn't about playing games or making someone jealous on purpose. True Stoicism isn't about manipulating others, but living authentically in your power. The fear of replacement works naturally because when you step back, you signal that you're no longer emotionally tied to them. You're living your life, thriving and creating space for new possibilities, and they can sense it. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how people start paying attention to what they've lost only when they see someone else valuing it? It's human nature. When you're no longer available, the mind starts to fill in the blanks. What are you doing? Who are you spending time with? And most importantly, has someone else stepped in to appreciate what they overlooked? This fear creeps in because it challenges their sense of security. They may have assumed that you'd always be there, that your loyalty and affection were constants. But now, with your absence, that foundation starts to crack. Suddenly, they're forced to confront the possibility that someone else might be experiencing the warmth, kindness, and energy you once gave them freely. And here's where it gets even more powerful. The fear of replacement doesn't need to be fueled by your actions. You don't have to post pictures with someone new or engage in overt attempts to spark jealousy. Simply focusing on your own life, embracing your passion, surrounding yourself with positive people, and shining in your independence sends a message far louder than any stage display could. This fear works because it forces them to reflect on what they've lost. They picture someone else benefiting from your presence, hearing your laughter, and feeling the depth of your care. It's an unsettling image, one that makes them question their choices and wonder, did I let something irreplaceable slip away? But here's the real question. Are you letting this fear dictate your worth, or are you using it as fuel to grow stronger? Because the fear of replacement isn't just their battle, it's a reminder for you to never settle for being taken for granted. Stoicism teaches us to embrace what we can control and let go of what we can't. In this case, you control how you live your life, how you grow, and how you value yourself. So, let me challenge you. What does thriving without them look like for you? Is it pursuing that dream you've put off? Is it surrounding yourself with people who see your worth? Or is it simply finding joy in the everyday moments that remind you of your strength? Whatever it is, lean into it fully. Because when you thrive, you not only rediscover your own power, you also create an undeniable presence that others can't ignore. And here's where the magic happens. As you grow, as you radiate confidence and joy, they begin to see what they've lost. They feel the pull of curiosity, regret, and yes, fear. Fear that they've been replaced. Fear that they'll never find someone like you again. And that fear, rooted in their own insecurities, becomes the catalyst for their return. But whether they come back or not isn't the point. The point is this: you're not waiting. you're moving forward. And in doing so, you're showing yourself and the world that your worth doesn't hinge on someone else's recognition. Now, before we move on, let's take a moment to reflect. Does this resonate with you? If so, let's hear it. Like this video and comment number 1 if you're ready to embrace your worth and let go of what no longer serves you. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. Join this community of strength, growth, and self-respect, because this is just the beginning of your journey. Stay tuned. Next, we'll dive into how thriving without them becomes your ultimate power. Let's keep going. 3. Thriving without them. Have you ever stopped to think about the energy you were giving to them? How much of yourself you poured into the relationship, your time, your care, your effort. Now, imagine redirecting that energy toward yourself. What would your life look like if you took all of that focus and invested it in your growth, your happiness, and your passions? This is the core of thriving without them. And it's not just a tool to make them notice. It's a gift you give to yourself. When you thrive without someone who once held so much of your emotional space, something profound happens. You show the world and yourself that you are not defined by their presence in your life. Instead, you are defined by your ability to create joy, purpose, and success on your own terms. This is the essence of Stoicism. Focusing on what you can control, embracing self-discipline, and letting go of the external validations that once tethered you. Thriving doesn't mean pretending to be happy or putting on a show. It's about genuinely finding fulfillment in your own journey. Start by asking yourself, what are the dreams I've put on hold? What passions have I neglected? Who do I want to become now that I have the space to grow? The answers to these questions are the seeds of your transformation. As you begin to explore these answers, you'll notice a shift, not just in how you see yourself, but in how others perceive you. There's a magnetism that comes from truly thriving. It's the light in your eyes when you talk about a new goal. It's the confidence in your step when you know you're building a life you're proud of. And yes, it's the silent but undeniable message you send to them. I don't need you to complete me. I am whole on my own. But thriving isn't just about external success. It's about internal peace. It's waking up in the morning and feeling grounded, knowing that your happiness isn't tied to anyone else's actions. It's embracing the quiet strength of someone who has learned to stand on their own. This is what makes thriving without them so powerful. It's not about proving a point, it's about living authentically. Of course, they'll notice. People always notice when someone begins to shine in ways they didn't expect. They'll see you smiling more, pursuing new opportunities, and surrounding yourself with people who uplift you. And in their mind, questions will start to arise. How are they doing so well without me? Have they forgotten about me? Did I underestimate their strength? These questions create a ripple effect, a sense of curiosity and regret that's hard to ignore. But the truth is, whether or not they come back isn't the point. The point is that you're no longer living for their attention or approval. You're thriving because you've chosen to value yourself. This is what Stoicism teaches us, that our power lies in our response, not in the actions of others. Thriving without them is the ultimate act of resilience, because it shows that you've taken the lessons from the past and used them to grow stronger. Now let's bring this back to you. What would thriving look like in your life? Maybe it's starting that project you've been putting off, or taking care of your physical and mental health in a way you never prioritized before. Maybe it's spending time with friends who bring out the best in you, or finding joy in small moments, reading a book, taking a walk, or simply enjoying your own company. Whatever thriving means to you, commit to it fully. Let it become your new normal. Because here's the reality. Thriving without them doesn't just make you stronger, it also makes you undeniable. You become the person they can't ignore, not because you're seeking their validation, but because you've built a life so full and vibrant that it speaks for itself. This isn't about revenge or proving them wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you're capable of joy, growth, and fulfillment on your own. And whether they come back or not, that's secondary. What matters is that you've reclaimed your energy, your focus, and your power. You're no longer waiting for someone else to complete your story. You're writing it yourself, one thriving moment at a time. Let's keep building on this foundation. Up next, we'll explore how the ego trigger plays into why they often return after no contact. It's a fascinating dynamic and one you won't want to miss. 4. The ego trigger. Why do people suddenly reappear in your life after you've stepped away? It often comes down to one of the most fundamental aspects of human nature, the ego. When you go no contact, you do something they didn't expect, you take back your power. And that shift doesn't just challenge their perception of you, it challenges their perception of themselves. Let's dive into why this happens and how it triggers their return. Think about it. When someone knows they hold a special place in your life, they feel secure. It's comforting for them to know that no matter what, you're there. Your texts, calls, or even your visible presence online serve as subtle reminders that they're on your mind. They may not consciously think about it, but that certainty feeds their ego. It makes them feel important, in control, and validated. But what happens when you take that away? When you stop texting, calling, or responding? The ego doesn't take it lightly. It starts to ask questions. Why aren't they reaching out anymore? Have they moved on? Do they even care about me now? And those questions often lead to something even more powerful, an intense desire to restore what was lost. The ego loves to be in control. It thrives on the idea that it's significant, valued, and irreplaceable. When you go no contact, you directly challenge this belief. You're showing them, without saying a word, that they are no longer the center of your world. And for many people, that shift is deeply unsettling. Here's the thing. The ego isn't always rational. It doesn't differentiate between genuine connection and the need for validation. When they come back, it's often because they need to regain a sense of importance. They want to know they still matter to you, that they still hold some level of influence in your life. But here's the beauty of no contact. You've already shifted the dynamic. You're no longer playing by their rules. And this is where the power of Stoicism comes in. By grounding yourself in self-respect and detachment, you're not just reacting to their ego-driven behavior, you're staying true to your values. You're showing that your worth isn't tied to their attention or validation. This is why the ego trigger works. It forces them to confront the reality that you are no longer waiting for them. Now let me ask you, have you ever noticed how someone's behavior changes when they feel like they're losing control? Maybe they suddenly become more attentive, reaching out in ways they never did before. Or perhaps they start showing interest in the little things about you they previously ignored. This isn't a coincidence, it's their ego responding to the shift in dynamics. But let's not forget your role in this. No contact isn't just about stepping back, it's about stepping up for yourself. When you stop giving your energy to someone who took it for granted, you create space for something far more important, your own growth. You're no longer seeking validation from someone else's actions. Instead, you're building a life where your worth is self-defined. And that's the real lesson here. The ego trigger may bring them back, but it's your strength and independence that keep you moving forward. When they see that you're thriving without their validation, it not only challenges their ego, it makes them question everything they thought they knew about you. So where does this leave you? Right where you need to be, in control of your own narrative. The ego trigger may draw them back, but it's not about them. It's about you reclaiming your power. And that's something no one can take away. If this resonates with you, let's hear it. Like this video and comment number 1 if you're ready to embrace your power and stop feeding someone else's ego. And don't forget to subscribe. This journey of growth and self-respect is just getting started. Together, we're building a community rooted in strength, stoicism, and unwavering self-worth. Let's keep going. Up next, we'll uncover the nostalgia effect and how it plays a key role in why they return. 5. The nostalgia effect. Memory has a strange way of reshaping our perceptions, doesn't it? Think about an old song you used to love. Maybe you played it so often that it became background noise, something you barely noticed anymore. But then, one day, it stops playing. Weeks or months pass, and suddenly, when you hear it again, it hits you differently. You're flooded with emotion, longing for the feelings it once brought into your life. This is the nostalgia effect, and it's a powerful reason why they come back after no contact. When you step back from someone's life, you create a void, a silence that wasn't there before. And in that silence, their mind begins to wander. Memories resurface, often selectively filtered to highlight the best moments you shared. This phenomenon, called rosy retrospection, makes the mind focus on the positives while dulling the edges of past conflicts. The result: they start romanticizing what once was. Why does this happen? Because human minds are wired to attach emotional significance to experiences that made us feel deeply. And when those experiences are no longer present, the brain fills in the gaps with longing. They begin to remember the way you made them laugh, the comfort you brought during hard times, and the little moments of connection that were unique to your bond. What was once overlooked now feels irreplaceable. But here's the thing: nostalgia doesn't just happen on its own. It's amplified by the space you create when you go no contact. By stepping back, you allow them to experience life without you. And as they navigate that absence, they start to notice the small things they once took for granted: your presence, your support, your energy. In the quiet moments, when they're alone with their thoughts, those memories gain power. This is where nostalgia becomes a double-edged sword for them. On one hand, it draws them back to the warmth and connection you shared. But on the other, it forces them to confront the reality of your absence. They may find themselves reaching for their phone, tempted to send a message just to see if they can reignite that spark. And in those moments, they're not thinking about the conflicts or challenges, they're thinking about what they've lost. Have you ever noticed how people often say you don't know what you have until it's gone? Nostalgia is the embodiment of that truth. When you were always present, they may have taken your qualities for granted. But now, in your absence, those same qualities feel magnified. The things they once dismissed as ordinary now feel extraordinary because they're no longer accessible. But here's an important distinction. Nostalgia isn't always enough to sustain a relationship. While it can bring them back, the question remains: are they returning because they truly value you, or because they miss the comfort you once provided? This is where your perspective matters most. Stoicism teaches us to approach situations with clarity and emotional balance. Instead of getting swept up in their return, ask yourself, are they coming back for the right reasons? And more importantly, does their return align with your growth and well-being? Nostalgia is a potent force, but it's not a guarantee. It's a reminder of what once was, not necessarily a reflection of what could be. That's why it's crucial to use no contact not just as a tool for distance, but as an opportunity for self-discovery. When they look back and remember the best parts of your connection, make sure those memories reflect the real you, the one who is strong, evolving, and self-assured. And here's a comforting thought. If their nostalgia brings them back, it's because you left an impression they couldn't forget. But whether or not they stay is not your burden to carry. What matters is that you've given yourself the space to grow, to thrive, and to become someone even more extraordinary than they remember. So the next time you find yourself wondering if they're thinking about you, consider this. Nostalgia is their journey, not yours. Let them wrestle with their memories while you continue to build a life that excites you. Because whether or not they return, you'll already be moving forward. And isn't that the ultimate win? Now that we've explored how nostalgia works, let's delve into the illusion of loss. This is another powerful factor that plays into why they often come back, and it's rooted in a fear far deeper than you might realize. Let's keep moving forward. 6. The illusion of loss. Have you ever noticed how the value of something often becomes crystal clear only after it's gone? This is the illusion of loss, a psychological phenomenon that compels people to reevaluate what they've let slip away. When you go no contact, you create a powerful sense of absence that forces them to confront this feeling head-on. And for many, this illusion becomes so overwhelming that it drives them back into your life. Let's unpack this. Human beings are naturally averse to loss. In fact, studies show that the pain of losing something is often more intense than the joy of gaining something of equal value. This is called loss aversion, And it's one of the reasons why no contact can have such a profound impact. When you step away, you trigger this instinctive fear, the idea that they may have lost something valuable for good. In the context of a relationship, this feeling becomes magnified. When you were present, they might have felt secure in the assumption that you'd always be there. They could reach out when they wanted, knowing you'd answer. They could drift in and out, confident in the stability of your affection. But no contact changes that dynamic entirely. Suddenly, you're not available. Your absence becomes a void that they can't ignore, and the illusion of loss begins to set in. This illusion isn't just about missing your presence, it's about the fear that they've made a mistake. They start asking themselves questions they might not have considered before. What if they're gone for good? What if someone else recognizes their worth? What if I've let go of something I'll never find again? These thoughts create a sense of urgency, a need to act before it's too late. And here's the fascinating part. This fear often has little to do with the specifics of your relationship. It's rooted in their own insecurities. The illusion of loss taps into their sense of identity and control. Losing you isn't just about losing a connection. It's about losing the part of themselves that felt important, valued, and desired in your presence. But let's pause for a moment. Have you ever considered how much power you hold in this scenario? By going no contact, you've shown them that your attention, time, and energy are privileges, not guarantees. This is a fundamental tenet of Stoicism. Understanding that your worth isn't defined by someone else's recognition. When you step away, you remind them that you're not an option to be taken lightly. And whether they return or not, you've already reclaimed your value. Of course, the illusion of loss doesn't just affect them, it can affect you too. It's natural to wonder if you're making the right choice by stepping back. You might ask yourself, what if they forget about me? What if I'm the one losing out? But here's the truth. The real loss would be staying in a situation where your worth isn't fully appreciated. By embracing no contact, you're not losing, you're choosing to create space for something better. As the illusion of loss takes hold in their mind, they may try to reach out. They might test the waters with a casual message, hoping to gauge whether the door is still open. Or they might make grand gestures, attempting to reclaim what they fear they've lost. But here's where your strength lies. You get to decide whether their actions align with the person you become during this time apart. Because let's not forget, the illusion of loss can't create true change. It can motivate them to return, but it doesn't guarantee that they've grown or that the relationship will be different this time. That's why it's essential to approach their return with clarity and discernment. Are they coming back because they've realized your value, or are they simply reacting to the fear of losing you? This distinction matters. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, our responses, our boundaries, and our growth. When they come back, it's an opportunity for reflection, not validation. You're not responsible for easing their fear of loss. Instead, you're responsible for ensuring that your life continues to move forward with or without them. So what does this mean for you? It means embracing the power of your absence without attachment to the outcome. The illusion of loss might bring them back, but your journey doesn't depend on their return. You've already chosen to value yourself, and that choice is far more significant than any reaction they might have. As we move forward, let's explore how their realization of what they took for granted plays into their return. This is where the depth of your impact truly comes into focus. 7. They begin to appreciate what they took for granted. Why is it that people often fail to value what they have until it's gone? When someone is constantly present, offering love, support, and care, it's easy for the recipient to assume that it will always be there. It becomes the backdrop of their life, comforting, dependable, and often unnoticed. But when you remove yourself, everything changes. They're left to confront the space you once filled, and in that space, they begin to realize just how much you brought into their life. When you go no contact, you're not just creating distance, you're creating clarity. Your absence becomes a mirror, reflecting back to them everything they overlooked. The thoughtful texts, the way you listened without judgment, the moments when you went out of your way to make them feel special. Suddenly, all of it feels magnified. They start to ask themselves, why didn't I see this before? How did I take someone so giving for granted? But here's the truth. This realization doesn't happen overnight. At first, they might try to ignore the gap you've left behind, convincing themselves that they don't need you. But over time, the weight of your absence grows heavier. They begin to feel the loss of your energy, your attention, and your presence. And with that realization comes regret. Regret is a powerful motivator. It forces people to revisit their actions, their choices, and the ways they may have fallen short. And for them, it's not just about what they lost. It's about the fear that they may never find it again. The qualities you brought to the relationship weren't just unique, they were irreplaceable. And as they sit with this awareness, it starts to pull them back toward you. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever been in their shoes? Have you ever taken someone for granted, only to realize later what they meant to you? If you have, then you know how deeply that regret can cut. It's a humbling experience, one that forces you to reevaluate your priorities. That's exactly what they're going through when they begin to appreciate everything you gave so freely. But let's not forget your role in this dynamic. While their realization might bring them back, the question remains. Have you also learned to value yourself? Stoicism teaches us to honor our boundaries and to give without losing ourselves in the process. If you've spent this time apart growing, healing, and recognizing your own worth, then their return is not about validation, it's about alignment. You have the power to decide what happens next. Their regret and newfound appreciation might feel gratifying, but it's not enough on its own. Ask yourself, are they coming back because they've changed or simply because they miss the comfort you provided? Are they ready to meet you at your level? Or are they still looking for someone to fill their emotional void? This is where your strength comes into play. By going no contact, you've already shown that you're willing to walk away from anything that doesn't honor your worth. And now, you have the opportunity to set a higher standard for what you'll accept moving forward. Their appreciation is a starting point, but it's your boundaries that will determine whether they truly deserve a place in your life. And let's not forget the lesson this holds for all of us. Never allow yourself to be taken for granted again. Your time, energy, and love are gifts, not obligations. When someone is fortunate enough to receive them, it's because you've chosen to share them, not because they're entitled to them. This understanding is what will protect your peace and ensure that every connection in your life is rooted in mutual respect and appreciation. If this resonates with you, let's hear it. Like this video and comment number 1 if you're ready to embrace your worth and never settle for less than you deserve. And don't forget to subscribe. This community is all about growth, self-respect, and building lives that reflect our deepest values. Together, we're redefining what it means to thrive in relationships. Let's keep going. Next, we'll explore how setting boundaries becomes a game changer in their decision to return. 8. They see you setting boundaries and respecting yourself. When was the last time you truly enforced your boundaries, not out of anger or frustration, but as a quiet act of self-respect? Boundaries are powerful, not because they push others away, but because they signal what you will and will not accept. When you go no contact, you're doing more than stepping back. You're drawing a clear line that says, I value myself enough to walk away from anything that doesn't honor my worth. For someone used to having unrestricted access to your time and energy, this shift can be startling. It forces them to confront a version of you they may not have fully seen before. A person who is strong, self-assured, and unwilling to compromise their self-respect. And this change doesn't just challenge their perception of you, it challenges their perception of the relationship. Imagine how things might have played out before no contact. Perhaps they felt confident that you'd always be there, no matter how they treated you. They could pull away, act inconsistently, or even take you for granted, knowing that you'd still answer their calls or respond to their texts. But when you enforce boundaries by going silent, by choosing not to engage, you change the rules of the game. You show them that you're not waiting around for their attention or validation. You're prioritizing yourself. This shift is powerful because it creates something they may not have felt before: respect. For someone accustomed to being the one in control, your act of self-respect forces them to see you differently. You're no longer the person who tolerated their indifference or inconsistency. You're someone who values yourself enough to demand more, not with words, but with actions. But let's take a moment to reflect on why boundaries are so transformative. Boundaries are about more than keeping people out. They're about protecting what matters most: your energy, your peace, and your well-being. When you set boundaries, you're saying, "I'm not afraid to lose you if it means keeping myself." That kind of strength is rare, and it's something others can't help but notice. For them, this realization can be unsettling. They may start to question why they ever thought you'd accept less than you deserve. They might feel a mix of regret and admiration as they come to terms with the fact that you're no longer willing to settle for anything that doesn't align with your standards. And in many cases, this newfound respect becomes the driving force behind their return. But here's the important part. Their respect isn't what validates you. Your decision to set boundaries and respect yourself is enough. Whether or not they return, you've already reclaimed your power by choosing to honor your needs over their convenience. This is the essence of Stoicism, recognizing that your worth is not determined by someone else's actions, but by the values you uphold in your own life. Of course, their return may bring new challenges. When someone comes back after seeing you enforce boundaries, it's natural to wonder whether their intentions are genuine. Are they truly ready to meet your standards, or are they just reacting to the discomfort of losing access to you? These are the questions that will guide your next steps. The beauty of setting boundaries is that it gives you clarity. By enforcing your standards, you filter out those who aren't willing to rise to meet them. You create space for connections that are built on mutual respect, not one-sided effort. And if they do return, it's because they've recognized the value of what you bring to the table, not because you've compromised your self-respect to make it easier for them. As you reflect on this, consider the power you hold in this dynamic. Setting boundaries isn't about controlling others, it's about controlling your own choices. When you choose to respect yourself, you set the tone for how others will treat you. And in doing so, you create a life that reflects your worth, regardless of whether they come back or not. So let this be your reminder. Your boundaries are not walls, they're invitations for others to step into a relationship rooted in respect and authenticity. And whether they accept that invitation is up to them. What matters most is that you've chosen to respect yourself, and that choice will always lead you toward growth, peace, and empowerment. Next, we'll uncover the final piece of this puzzle: how no contact positions you as someone they see as a gift, not a given. Stay with me, because this is where everything comes together. 9. The realization that your presence is a gift. Have you ever stopped to think about how rare it is to find someone who genuinely adds value to your life? Someone whose presence feels like a light in the dark, whose energy lifts you, and whose care makes you feel truly seen. This is what it means to be a gift in someone's life. And when you go no contact, you give them the space to realize that you were that gift all along. For so long, they may have overlooked what you brought into their world. Maybe it was the way you were always there when they needed you, the effort you put into the relationship, or the way you made them feel understood and appreciated. When you were constantly present, they may have seen these qualities as normal, something they could count on without question. But now, in your absence, the truth becomes undeniable. Not everyone brings what you brought. Not everyone can replace what you gave so freely. No contact is a powerful reminder that your presence was never guaranteed, it was chosen. Every text, every conversation, every act of care was a reflection of your choice to invest in them. And when you step back, you make it clear that this gift was not something they were entitled to. It was something they were fortunate to receive. This realization hits hard, especially when they begin to see the contrast between life with you and life without you. But let's take a step deeper. Why does this realization often come so late? It's because human nature tends to take the familiar for granted. When something is always there, we assume it always will be. It's only when it's gone, when the silence replaces the laughter, when the absence replaces the comfort, that we begin to see its true value. This is why your presence becomes so much more powerful after you've stepped away. Think about the impact this has on them. They start to replay moments in their mind, the times you were there for them, the ways you supported them, and the energy you brought into their life. These memories aren't just nostalgic, they're a stark reminder of what they've lost. And as they reflect, one thought becomes impossible to ignore. I didn't appreciate them enough. But here's the crucial part. Your worth isn't defined by their realization. The fact that your presence is a gift has always been true, whether they see it or not. No contact is about creating space for them to understand this truth. But more importantly, it's about giving yourself the freedom to fully embrace it. When you recognize that your energy, your love, and your attention are gifts, you stop giving them to people who don't deserve them. You become more intentional about who you allow into your life. This is where Stoicism becomes your anchor. It teaches us to find strength in self-awareness and to focus on what we can control: our actions, our boundaries, and our growth. By stepping back, you're not waiting for their recognition, you're affirming your own. You're choosing to live as someone who knows their worth, regardless of whether others see it. When they do return, it's often with a newfound respect and admiration. They've felt the void you left behind, and they've realized that your presence wasn't just an option, it was a privilege. But here's where your power lies. You're no longer in the same place you were before. You've grown, evolved, and built a life that reflects your value. Their return is not about validation, it's about alignment. Do they now see you for who you truly are? And more importantly, do they add to the life you've created? This journey is as much about you as it is about them. When you internalize the truth that your presence is a gift, you stop chasing after those who don't see it. Instead, you start attracting people who do. And whether they return or not, you've already won, because you've chosen to honor yourself. So as we bring this journey to a close, let this truth guide you. Your presence is a gift. It always has been, and it always will be. Embrace this reality, not as something that needs to be proven, but as a foundation for how you live your life. The right people will see it, and the rest will fall away. If this message resonates with you, take it to heart. And as you move forward, remember that your worth isn't determined by who stays or who goes. It's determined by how you show up for yourself. You are the gift, and the world is better for having you in it. As we close this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered together. When they return after no contact, it's never just one thing that drives them back. It's the fear of replacement, the pull of nostalgia, the jolt to their ego, and the realization of what they've taken for granted. It's the silence you leave behind that grows louder with every passing day, forcing them to confront what your presence meant in their life. But here's the most important takeaway. This journey isn't about them, it's about you. By going no contact, you've taken one of the most courageous steps you can, choosing yourself. You've shown that your time, your energy, and your love are not to be given away lightly. You've embraced the wisdom of Stoicism, grounding yourself in your own worth rather than relying on the validation of others. And in doing so, you've created a life that reflects your strength, your resilience, and your power. This isn't just about making them come back, it's about coming back to yourself. It's about rediscovering who you are outside of their influence and recognizing that your worth was never tied to their actions or choices. When you thrive without them, when you set boundaries, and when you honor your own growth, you're not just changing the dynamic, you're transforming your life. And here's the beauty of it. Whether they return or not becomes secondary. If they come back with genuine growth and a new appreciation for who you are, you have the clarity to decide if they align with the life you're building. If they don't, you've already created a foundation of self-respect and independence that will carry you forward. Either way, you win. So, let me leave you with this. Your presence is a gift, not a guarantee. When you live with this truth, you attract people and experiences that reflect your value. You stop settling for anything less than what you deserve, and you start embracing a life that is truly yours. Now it's time to take action. If this message resonated with you, let the world and yourself know. Like this video and comment, "My presence is a gift." Declare it boldly as a reminder of the journey you're on. If you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel and join a community that's committed to growth, self-respect, and Stoic wisdom. Together, we're not just learning, we're transforming. And finally, share this message with someone who needs it. Maybe it's a friend who's struggling to find their worth or someone who's navigating the pain of letting go. Let's remind each other that we're stronger than we think and that our worth is always within us. Thank you for choosing to spend your time here, for embracing this journey, and for stepping into your power. You've already taken the first step, and I can't wait to see where your path leads. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and always remember, your presence is a gift. See you in the next video.